Have you ever felt stuck? Like you're putting in all this effort but not seeing any real progress toward your goals? Maybe you want to start exercising, learn a new language, or finally finish that big project. The struggle is real, but the solution might be smaller than you think. Today we're diving deep into a book that changed how millions of people think about change. Atomic Habits by James Clear. Clear's central argument is simple but profound. Forget about big, radical changes. Focus on getting 1% better every day. 1% improvement seems tiny, but over a year, it compounds into massive, life-altering results. It's not about huge willpower. It's about tiny, consistent action. That's the power of atomic habits. We're going to break down the entire framework into 15 actionable segments. So buckle up. This is the guide you need to build a better you. A big mistake we all make is falling in love with the goal. I want to lose 20 pounds. I want to write a book. I want to land that promotion. We put all our focus and energy on the desired outcome, and that's often where motivation dies. James Clear makes a powerful statement here. You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. Your goal might be the finish line, but your system, the collection of small habits that dictate your daily actions, is the entire race and the track itself. If you shift your focus to the system, like saying, I will consistently stretch for 5 minutes every morning, or I will write 500 words before checking email, the habit, instead of just fixating on the goal, the process suddenly becomes much more manageable and sustainable. Habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. It's not about achieving something once and being done, it's about the endless cycle of refinement. The ultimate purpose of building better habits isn't simply to achieve something, it's to become someone, a better version of yourself. That transition from doing to being is what brings us directly to the concept of identity. This is one of the most powerful concepts in the book because it moves beyond surface-level changes. Most people try to achieve change by focusing on outcome-based habits. They say, I want to lose 20 pounds, or I want to write a book this year. That focus is entirely on the result, the outcome. Clear suggests we flip the script entirely and focus instead on identity-based habits. Ask yourself, who is the type of person who could achieve that goal? That person is a runner, a writer, or a healthy eater. Once you start identifying as a runner, your decisions change automatically. You don't have to summon massive amounts of willpower to force yourself to go for a run every day. A runner simply runs because that's who they are. The goal isn't just to read a book. The goal is to become a reader. Every single action you take is essentially a vote for the type of person you wish to become, reinforcing that identity. This profound shift from focusing on what you want to achieve to fundamentally changing who you believe yourself to be is the ultimate game changer for long-term, sustainable behavior. Now that we have the proper mindset, we can dive into the actual tactical playbook, starting with the first law: make it obvious. The very first challenge in successfully building any new habit is the most basic, simply remembering to do it. If you can't make a habit obvious, you will never even get to the point of trying it. This first law is all about awareness and leveraging your immediate environment. The most practical tool here is something called habit stacking. It's the best way to start a new habit because it cleverly ties the new action to an existing one you already do without fail. You simply use the formula after current habit, I will, new habit. For example, instead of vaguely planning to meditate, you make it specific. After I pour my morning coffee, I will meditate for 60 seconds. You are using the reliably performed old habit as the clear, obvious trigger or the cue for the new one. This drastically increases the odds that you'll follow through because you're giving the habit a specific time and place in your daily routine. Following the idea of making habits obvious, we have to talk about how your surroundings influence your behavior more than your motivation ever will. This is the concept of environment design. Your environment should be deliberately set up to make the desired action easy and, crucially, to make the undesired action difficult. Think about it. Willpower is a limited, exhausting resource, but your environment is a constant, powerful, and passive force. If you want to encourage hydration, leave a full water bottle on your desk or on your car seat where you can't possibly miss it. If you want to practice your guitar more, don't keep it tucked away in a case in the closet. Leave it out on a stand right in the middle of the living room. Conversely, if you want to eat less junk food, don't try to rely on willpower when you open the pantry. Simply put those unhealthy snacks somewhere out of sight, maybe on the top shelf, or even better, don't buy them at all. The entire goal here is to make the visual cues for good habits prominent and the cues for bad habits invisible. You're essentially automating the first step. Before you can effectively change your habits, you must first know precisely what they are. This is where the habit scorecard comes in. Awareness is the crucial first step to any lasting change. Most of us go through the day on autopilot, simply not realizing how many small, repeated actions, the atomic habits, we perform unconsciously. To complete the scorecard, you need to audit your day. Keep a log, either mentally or physically, of your current habits throughout the day and then label each one as good, bad, or neutral. For instance, checked phone first thing in the morning, drank a glass of water, ate lunch while scrolling. This exercise is not meant to be a moment of judgment. It's purely about objective observation. You can't change what you don't measure and acknowledge. The scorecard is incredibly effective because it clearly highlights all those subtle, tiny actions that are compounding your life for better or for worse, allowing you to clearly see the cues you've made obvious without even realizing it.
Now that you know what your habits are and where to practice them, the second challenge is ensuring they are actually something you want to do. This brings us to the second law. Make it attractive. We are always, naturally, more likely to repeat a behavior when the experience is immediately satisfying or appealing. If a habit feels boring, difficult, or unpleasant, your brain will resist it, simple as that. The key to solving this resistance is to reframe how you think about the habit. Instead of focusing on the pain of the sacrifice, focus on the benefits of the habit. Instead of saying, I have to wake up at 5 a.m., say, I get to have 2 hours of quiet time to work on my passion project. By reframing it in terms of what the habit enables you to do, rather than what it requires you to give up, you significantly boost the perceived attractiveness and your enthusiasm for the action.
One of the most effective and clever strategies to inject that needed attractiveness into a boring task is called temptation bundling. This is a simple but brilliant hack where you intentionally pair an action you want to do, something you look forward to, with an action you need to do, the new habit you're trying to establish. For example, maybe you need to do 30 minutes on the elliptical, but you really want to binge that new podcast or show on Netflix. You make a non-negotiable rule. Only allow yourself to listen to that podcast or watch your favorite show while you are performing the necessary exercise. By bundling the immediate pleasure, the entertainment, with the necessary habit, the workout, you make the necessary habit immediately attractive because it is now directly linked to an instant, enjoyable reward. You look forward to the workout because it's the only time you get that treat. This is how you shift a difficult activity from being a chore to being something that grants you access to something you crave.
We are deeply social creatures, and one of the fastest, most passive ways to make a habit attractive is to leverage your social environment. Clear points out that our deepest motivation often comes from a simple desire to fit in, to belong, and to follow the unspoken rules of the tribe we identify with.
If you want to build a habit, the easiest way to do it is to surround yourself with people who already exhibit that behavior as a natural part of their lives. Our most common behavior is often nothing more than the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with. If you want to be more active, join a running group or a hiking club. If you want to read more, join a book club. When your desired behavior, like waking up early to write or consistently preparing healthy meals, is the norm in your social circle, it stops being a difficult, lonely chore that requires motivation. Instead, it starts being something you simply do to maintain your identity within that group. By joining a culture where your desired identity is the baseline, you instantly tap into the collective drive of the group, making the habit significantly more appealing and easier to maintain.
Understanding the biology behind your habits is key to making them attractive. And that means talking about dopamine. Habits are fundamentally driven by a biological feedback loop. Dopamine is not just released when we experience pleasure. Contrary to popular belief, it's actually released most heavily in the anticipation of pleasure. It's the signal for the craving, which is what motivates the action itself. The craving is the motivation. The core problem with most beneficial habits, like saving money, exercising, or deep work, is that their rewards are significantly delayed. The satisfaction from putting money in the bank or the health benefits from one workout won't show up for months. Your brain, however, is wired to prioritize and favor instant rewards. This law, then, is all about engineering your life so that you inject an immediate, positive feeling into a long-term process. By figuring out how to make the start of the habit feel good, you utilize the power of anticipation to get the momentum you need, bridging the time gap until the real, delayed results finally kick in.
We've successfully made the habit obvious and attractive. Now we have to deal with the inevitable resistance that crops up when it's actually time to do the work. This leads us to the third law: make it easy. The core philosophy here is the law of least effort. The less friction a habit has, the more likely you are to do it. Humans naturally gravitate towards the option that requires the least amount of physical and mental energy. Habits should be made as simple as humanly possible. Your goal is to drastically reduce the number of steps, the friction, between you and your desired action to an absolute minimum. If you want to start a new writing routine, don't just clear your desk. Set up your computer, open the document, and leave the title written before you walk away for the night. Friction is the silent, pervasive enemy of consistency. By systematically eliminating friction points, you make it so easy that the habit requires virtually no willpower to initiate. You should actively engineer your life so that doing the right thing is the path of least resistance.
This is one of the most famous and universally helpful concepts in the book, designed specifically to demolish the issue of resistance and friction. It's called the 2-minute rule, and it's a simple constraint: start every new habit in under 2 minutes. The secret here is that the true goal is not to master the finish line. The goal is to master the start of the action. We often try to do too much too soon, which immediately triggers resistance. The 2-minute rule forces you to reframe your big, intimidating goals into small, manageable entry points. Read before bed for 30 minutes becomes read 1 page. Run 3 miles becomes put on my running shoes. Study for an hour becomes review my notes for 60 seconds. Once you've successfully started the 2-minute version of the habit, momentum often carries you forward to do more. But even if it doesn't, you still completed the habit successfully and you didn't break the chain. You've simply optimized for the beginning and protected your precious streak.
Building on the law of least effort, a powerful tactical application is called priming the environment.
This means preparing the space where your next habit will occur right after you finish your previous task. The goal is to make the future action effortless by doing the hard prep work now, when you have slightly more energy and motivation. For instance, if you want to cook a healthy meal right when you get home from work, you don't wait until you're exhausted to start chopping vegetables. Instead, you spend 10 minutes the night before or the morning of slicing the ingredients, setting out the pan, and laying out the recipe card. If you want to use your exercise bike, lay your water bottle, towel, and remote control right on the seat. By priming your environment, you are essentially reducing the activation energy required to start. When you return to that space, the immediate impulse is no longer to debate whether to start, but simply to fall into the action because all the friction has already been removed. The way you execute a habit is just as important as when and where you execute it. This is about establishing a standard operating procedure, or an SOP, for your most important routines. Habit formation is truly about standardizing a process so that it becomes second nature. And only after it's consistent do you focus your energy on continually improving the performance. Consistency must come before optimization. A vague plan will always lead to inconsistent action. Don't just say, "I'll do laundry sometime this weekend." That requires too many taxing decisions about when, how much, and what kind. Instead, set a rigid SOP. Every Saturday at 10 a.m., I will put 1 load of whites into the machine using the normal setting. This extreme clarity virtually eliminates what's known as decision fatigue. When you know exactly how you will perform a task and exactly when it will happen, you eliminate the mental energy spent deciding and arguing with yourself, leaving all your focus and motivation for actually doing the habit. As we get consistent, we hit a critical challenge that derails most people: the valley of disappointment. This is the phase where you've been putting in the work for weeks or months, but you still haven't seen the major results you hoped for. Clear's answer to this is the Goldilocks rule. The Goldilocks rule states that humans experience peak motivation when working on tasks that are right on the edge of their current abilities. Not too hard, not too easy, but just right. If a habit is too easy, you get bored. If it's too hard, you get frustrated. To stick with a habit through that valley of disappointment, you have to constantly find ways to make the process engaging. This often means subtly scaling the habit up as your skills grow, ensuring the challenge remains manageable yet stimulating. It keeps you engaged and moving forward when the long-term rewards are still out of sight. If a behavior is not immediately satisfying, you have very little reason to repeat it, which is why the majority of good habits fail. This is the final and most critical law: make it satisfying. While the first 3 laws, obvious, attractive, and easy, are designed to get you to start a habit, this final law is the key ingredient that actually gets you to stick with it over the long haul. The central challenge here is that almost every truly beneficial habit, whether it's saving money, studying, or exercising, has a significant delay in its rewards. You won't see the results of one good decision today. To fix this gap between effort and reward, we need to inject an immediate reward into the process. We have to find a way for the current moment to feel successful, even if the ultimate outcome is months away. This bridging of the time gap is what guarantees your brain registers the behavior as worthwhile and pushes you to repeat it tomorrow. The most effective, tried and true method for making a habit immediately satisfying is by using a habit tracker. This visual representation of your consistency provides an instant, clear, and immensely satisfying reward. Clear references the phrase, "Don't break the chain," because seeing that unbroken string of success marks on your calendar or within an app provides a powerful sense of accomplishment right now, today. When you track a habit, you are actively linking the positive feeling of success to the action itself rather than the distant result.
Each day you mark off is an immediate win, giving you that necessary dopamine hit that reinforces the loop. Furthermore, tracking keeps you honest. You can't lie to the tracker, and the simple fear of breaking a long streak often acts as a surprisingly potent motivator. It transforms an abstract goal into a concrete game you play against yourself, where every mark is a point scored. The 4 laws don't just apply to building good habits, they also apply to breaking bad ones, only in reverse. To make a bad habit extinct, you need to make it unsatisfying. This is the core strategy for overcoming negative patterns. The key here is to add an immediate consequence or cost to the negative action. Since bad habits have an instant reward, like scrolling social media or eating junk food, the trick is to balance that out with an immediate negative experience. One highly effective way to do this is through a habit contract. This is a formal, written agreement where you state your commitment and list the penalty that will be incurred if you fail to stick to your habit. You then get 1 or 2 accountability partners to sign it and enforce the penalty. Knowing you'll immediately owe a friend $50 or have to perform a dreaded chore can be an incredibly powerful motivator to make the bad habit immediately and consciously unsatisfying.
Despite all the rules and systems we've put in place, the core reality of life remains. Perfection is impossible. You will slip up. You will miss a day. You will skip a workout or order takeout when you plan to cook. Clear insists that the difference between a successful person and an unsuccessful person is not whether they fail, but their ability to quickly recover. This is the crucial never miss twice rule. Missing one day is an accident. It happens because life intervenes. Missing 2 days, however, is the start of a new bad habit, a pattern of letting things slide. Your recovery protocol is arguably the most important part of your entire system. You cannot afford to let one lapse turn into a complete downward spiral of guilt and giving up. The key is to get back on track immediately the very next day, proving to yourself that your identity as someone who sticks to their habits is stronger than a temporary slip-up. This commitment to the immediate return is how you maintain the momentum of compounding habits. We've talked about making bad habits immediately unsatisfying with a habit contract, but there's a softer, yet still powerful way to apply this principle: the reverse habit scorecard. This is about actively measuring the consequences of failing to perform a beneficial habit or the consequences of performing a destructive one. For example, if your goal is to save money but you keep impulse buying, take a moment after a purchase and log not just the dollar amount, but what that money could have been used for: a vacation, an investment, or paying off debt. Similarly, if you skip your workout, log how that affects your energy levels or your sleep that night. This makes the consequence of the negative action immediate and emotionally tangible, rather than a vague future regret. By tracking the cost of inaction, you make the failure to maintain your good habits immediately more painful and less appealing. A key component of making a habit satisfying isn't just external rewards, but understanding the internal, immediate rewards. This requires linking the action not just to a visual checkmark, but to an emotional feeling. When you finish a good habit, whether it's meditating for 10 minutes or finishing a tough report, take 10 seconds to note your immediate mood or energy level. You might realize that while starting the workout was awful, you feel energized and clearer-headed right afterwards. You might find that skipping the social media check felt restrictive, but the feeling of uninterrupted focus after an hour is incredibly satisfying. By explicitly tracking the mood spike after the habit, the instant psychological reward, you are literally training your brain to crave the feeling that comes after the effort.
If you truly want to make a bad habit unsatisfying, you need to introduce an element of accountability. This means moving the consequence for failure from an internal, easy-to-ignore thought to an external, social pressure. We care deeply about what others think of us,
and leveraging that social pressure is one of the most effective advanced tactics for behavior change. You don't necessarily need a formal habit contract, but you do need an accountability partner, a friend, family member, or coach who you report your failures to. When you know that someone else is watching your progress, or more importantly, watching when you skip a task, the emotional cost of inaction rises immediately. The failure is no longer just a private choice. It becomes a potential source of embarrassment or social disappointment. This simple act of making your intentions and your setbacks public is a profound tool for making the wrong behavior feel immediately and powerfully unsatisfying. We've spent most of our time discussing how to build good habits, but what about getting rid of the bad ones? Clear suggests we simply invert the 4 laws of behavior change. To make a bad habit extinct, we apply the inverse. Make it invisible, make it unattractive, make it difficult, and make it unsatisfying. Take the law of make it obvious. To break a bad habit, you make it invisible. If you waste time on your phone, put your phone in another room or delete the most distracting apps. By removing the cue, you short-circuit the entire habit loop before it can even start. If you want to stop eating unhealthy food, the key isn't relying on willpower when the cookies are staring you down. It's making the cue invisible by never buying the cookies in the first place. These 4 inversions are the master blueprint for self-control, transforming the battle against temptation from a struggle of willpower to a strategic victory of environmental design. As we move into the advanced stages of habit mastery, James Clear emphasizes the role of reflection and review, something we often skip when we're focused only on the doing. This is an advanced tactic of self-awareness. It's about moving from simply performing the habit to actively analyzing the system itself. Every few weeks, you need to pause and ask yourself 2 critical questions. Am I moving in the right direction? And is this habit still serving my identity? Your goals and identity evolve, and a habit that was critical 6 months ago might now be obsolete or inefficient. Detaching yourself from the current habit system and performing an honest audit prevents habit drift, the slow, subtle erosion of your routines. It ensures you don't keep perfectly executing a system that is no longer aligned with the person you're striving to become. So let's bring it all back together one last time. We've gone through the 4 simple yet profound laws of behavior change. Make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying. These laws guide you through every stage of a habit's life, from the cue to the craving, the response, and finally the reward. The path to greatness, success, or just a better quality of life is not a sudden, dramatic leap. It's the result of countless atomic habits, all stacking up one tiny 1% improvement after another. Remember, it's not about being perfect, but about being consistent. Get that 1% better today. Design your systems, cast your votes for your new identity, and never break the chain twice. If this breakdown helped you see the world of habits in a new light, smash that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into life-changing books. Let me know in the comments below, what one atomic habit are you going to start building this week, and how will you use one of these 25 principles to make it stick? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Keep building.